diversity, the likes of which this series has never seen before. I honestly found myself yearning more for combat than I did for story moments, which I think says a lot about what the DNA of this new Mass Effect experience is. But sadly, the combat experience does have a major shortcoming, and one that really goes to the core of the game's open world-based economy. See, I have all of these skills available to me, and I've always been told that I can kind of develop these different loadouts and switch between them on the fly, but the fact is you just don't have enough skill points to spare to be able to build out all of these different profiles. You actually need to put your skill points into the skills you already have, rather than putting them into newer, different, lower level skills. Otherwise you've just got no chance of beating the combat encounters later on, or at least it's much harder. So the issue here is that the game needs to sort of throttle the pace of your leveling to incentivize us to enter the open world and grind all of those side quests, rather than give us those skill points from leveling up during the main campaign. And the net effect is that we spend all of this time gazing longingly in our menu, wishing we had enough points to be able to pick up all these awesome fun abilities and create these loadouts, but the only path to do that is to grind the side mission content that is straight up inferior to the core campaign content. And this same economic rationaling completely cripples the crafting system. There is actually a really awesome, interesting crafting system in Andromeda, allowing me to craft so many different weapons and gear and nomad upgrades and all sorts of stuff that I'd love to use. But to be honest, over my 50 hours of play, I crafted 2 things, because the system is so ridiculously dependent upon so many types of materials and currency that it's basically impossible for me to get anything I actually need unless I did all the boring bullshit stuff like mining materials in my Nomad or scanning planets. Honestly, if I were you, I would totally write off and ignore the crafting system, unless you are someone that plans to do all of the open world side quests and farming, because otherwise it is totally inaccessible to you. And this really is the core design issue that I kind of touched on a little bit earlier. Andromeda, its biggest weakness is that it was clearly designed by committee. There are tons and tons of different divergent gameplay systems awkwardly piled on top of each other, attempting to create depth and replayability, but really only achieving and frustrating the player. Where I should feel powerful by the end of my playthrough, I actually feel underpowered and underleveled and undergeared because the economy supporting my gameplay decisions is so stingy that it blocks off huge portions of the game. BioWare is clearly an inclusive, team-focused sort of developer, but honestly I feel like they need a little bit of Napoleon in there, someone to grab them by the scruff of the neck, cut out 30 to 40% of the chaff that made it into this game, and then just focus really squarely on what makes Mass Effect great, which is strong world building, gripping storytelling, memorable characters, and true player power. With that level of razor focus, the game could have been finished earlier, and BioWare could have done what this game so desperately needs, and that is put a layer of polish on this thing. Right now, it's clear as daylight that this game was rushed out the door. Between the facial animations, NPCs holding their guns backwards or no guns at all, awkward walking, badly scripted cutscenes, no functional camera in cutscenes, issues with positional audio, stability issues, all sorts of stuff, it was super clear that they just weren't ready to get it out on time, and that's the first time I can really say that playing a BioWare game. BioWare has a very strong reputation on this front. It's one of the few developers left that still have that reputation, and I hate to see them forfeit this reputation because they were too focused on implementing gameplay systems that did little to deepen our connection to the universe or the characters within it. For a game that's set in the future, Mass Effect Andromeda really feels like a game deeply rooted in its past and totally unambitious in its desire to move beyond it. It's for these reasons that I have to score the game 7.5 out of 10. While the core story is good enough, it's generic, and the lack of world building going on feels like either laziness or a lack of ambition. The new protagonist is a really good start and has a great arc ahead of them over the future games that I'm sure will come, but his crew do little to offset his youth and inexperience, and I feel very little connection to those people. The open world elements can provide some great moments as you traverse unfamiliar territory, but the impact that this creates on the skills and crafting economy undermine the huge improvement in the combat system. And the myriad of other gameplay systems piled on top of all of this, many of which I haven't even listed in this review, really just distract from the core experience rather than improve it. There's a lot of game to be enjoyed across Mass Effect, and certainly I plan to continue playing it, as honestly I do enjoy it. Like, there's no doubt about that. I had a good experience throughout the course of this game, no question, right? But taken as a whole, and in the context of how high a bar the original Mass Effect
enjoy a Ferrari in Britain? Oh, yes, you can. Power V12.
So, and then you can drive along quite happily at 20 miles an hour. Easy.
It's not even especially big.
I'm not saying this is tiny, but it's not preposterous. You don't go through every gap like
Half an hour later, we were told to brim the tanks in our cars.
How fast your car can go is not relevant.
Sort of
It's
is.
how fast you dare drive it.
The location for this challenge was the Nardo test track. A banked 8-mile circle of tarmac so vast it can be seen clearly from space. No car can achieve its true top speed here because it's one endless corner. But it is one of only 2 or 3 places in the world where they can get close. Lamborghini and McLaren had both sent technicians to make sure